You've got it. That killer app idea. You know, the one that feels like it could really take off. But then, bam, reality hits. How do you actually start? Where's step one?
Yeah, it's a super common feeling. And look, we get it.
Totally. So today, here on the Deep Dive, we're really honing in on those absolute first moves to take an idea and start making it concrete.
We've been looking at the whole process, designing, releasing a new app.
And our mission really is to pull out the key stuff you need to know for that initial planning phase way before any coding happens.
Exactly. It's about building that solid foundation first.
Yeah.
You know, setting the strategy before you even think about the code itself.
Avoids a lot of pain later, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the temptation is always there, isn't it? Just jump in, start coding, see something happening quickly.
Yeah, get that instant gratification.
Yeah, but hoping a design will just sort of emerge while you're coding, that's usually a path to delays, frustration, headaches for everybody involved.
Before the development, we need to ask some really fundamental questions.
Foundational, exactly.
All right, let's dive in then. Question one seems almost too simple, maybe, but I guess it's the core. What's the app actually going to do?
Yeah. What's its purpose? What's the basic functionality?
And the sources we looked at were clear. Apps evolve, right? Your first idea probably won't be the final one.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But you need that initial target, that first version, even if it's just the absolute must-haves. That's your starting block.
Okay, makes sense. And tied right into the what is the data?
Oh, absolutely critical. There's this great line, I think it was attributed to Google, it's all about the data.
Huh.
And it's just so true. How the app functions, how it's structured, it all hinges on the information it needs to, access and manage.
And that's not just technical stuff, is it? You mentioned legal things.
Straight away, yeah. You immediately have to think about legal constraints.
Right.
Especially, and this is a big one, if you're dealing with personal data.
Ah, right. Like user info.
Exactly. Names, emails, locations, whatever. If you're collecting that, you've got responsibility. Privacy laws, data security. That has to be part of the plan from day one. You can't just bolt it on later.
Definitely something easy to miss early on. Okay, so what it does, what data it uses. Next up, where does it live? The platform.
Desktop, tablet, smartphone, smartwatch even.
And the sources really stressed how much difference that makes. It's not just one design fits all.
Not even close. The hardware, the device itself, imposes some pretty significant constraints. Screen real estate is the obvious one.
Yeah, designing for my big monitor versus my tiny watch screen.
Totally different world, right? You might need completely different approaches, maybe using what they call nested screens or forms on smaller devices just to make the information usable.
Break it down into smaller chunks.
Exactly. And people still expect it to be fast and smooth, regardless of the device's power.
That makes total sense. Okay, so platform choice, that must lead into the next question. What language do you actually build it in?
It does, yeah. The platform might push you towards certain languages or frameworks.
But there was a warning there too, wasn't there, about not getting locked in too early?
Yes, definitely. Be careful about choosing a technology that might limit you later. You want your app to grow, maybe move to other platforms eventually.
Yeah.
So thinking about building a code base that's stable, that's maintainable, that's really important for the long haul.
I've heard horror stories about picking some trendy new language and then 2 years later, nobody knows how to maintain it.
It happens. So yeah, consider the bigger picture. Will this choice make it harder to expand later? A solid foundation saves so much trouble down the road. Bugs, new features, all that stuff.
Okay, so purpose, data, platform, language. Now, the big one maybe, how do people actually get this app, the release strategy?
Yep, and this needs to be part of the initial thinking too, not an afterthought. The obvious route usually is the main Play stores.
Like Apple's App Store, Google Play.
Exactly. And typically you're looking at either a one-time registration fee to become a developer, or sometimes it's an annual subscription.
Okay, you pay to play, essentially.
Pretty much.
But it's not just a case of hitting upload, right? I remember seeing something important about testing. QA?
Oh, vital. Application testing and quality assurance. It's a cost, both time and maybe money, that people often seriously underestimate.
Why is it so critical for the stores?
Because your app has to meet their specific criteria, their guidelines, performance, security, content rules, UI standards.
Yeah, okay.
So researching those requirements before you write any code is just smart. Google and Apple are the big ones, obviously, and how long testing takes depends on your app's complexity and which store you're aiming for.
You don't want to build for 6 months and then get rejected.
Exactly. Huge waste of effort.
Okay, and then let's be honest, for a lot of people, it's about making some money too, monetization.
Right. How does the app pay for itself or generate revenue? Several models mentioned. Free with ads, maybe in-app purchases, subscription models are popular.
Or just a straight one-off price to buy it.
Yep, that too. But, and here's the catch with the stores again.
There's always a catch.
Well, they'll usually want to cut, right, a percentage of whatever your app brings in. And they might have specific rules about how you do subscriptions, for example.
So read the fine print. Again.
Always read the fine print.
Now, there was also mention of just like putting it on your own website for download, skipping the stores.
That's an option, yeah. Gives you more control, obviously. No commission fees usually.
Right.
But you've got costs, hosting setup, ongoing hosting fees, and maybe the biggest hurdle, discoverability.
How do people find it?
Exactly. If you're not in the place where millions of users are already browsing and searching for apps, how do they even know you exist? It's a real challenge.
Which kind of leads perfectly into the next point. How do users find your app wherever it lives?
Yeah, getting noticed. Traditional advertising was mentioned, but that can get expensive fast.
Sure.
What's interesting is the growing emphasis on social media, even for solo developers or small teams, using platforms like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever fits.
Build and buzz yourself.
Exactly. Showing it off, talking about it. The sources suggest the infrastructure is actually there now to support even individual creators pretty well.
That's encouraging, actually.
It is. It boils down to, if you have a genuinely good idea and you can present it attractively, the technical barriers to getting it out there are lower than they've ever been.
Okay, wow. That's a lot to chew on just for the start. So let's try and wrap our heads around the key takeaways. If you're that person with the brilliant app idea, the first real work isn't coding, it's thinking carefully.
Right? Thinking about what's its core job, what data does it need, where will people use it, which platforms, what are the pros and cons of different programming languages, and really crucially, how will you get it to users?
Including that testing step and figuring out the money side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of that needs a plan.
And spending time here up front isn't wasting time.
No way. Is the efficient route. It sets a clear path, avoids confusion later, makes the actual development smoother, less frustrating. It builds that essential roadmap right from the get-go.
Saves you time and agony down the line.
Definitely.
Okay, so as you're processing all this, maybe mulling over your own idea, here's something to really think about, a final thought for you.
Okay.
Of all those initial design things we talked about, purpose, data, platform, language, release strategy, which one do you think ultimately has the biggest impact on the user's experience? Not just technically, but how it feels to use your app. Something to ponder beyond just the nuts and bolts.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.